I would say in the year that I've worked with her, like uh, after school, coming to work, and just she would always ask, "How was school? How's your day?" And we kind of talk about that kind of stuff. When there were no customers in the store, we would just kind of look to each other and talk about gardening or baking. We would talk about baking a lot too. That was fun. But yeah, she's kind of like another mom. Like I could, spend the weekends with her and just after school again, like just talk about your day and I guess talk about sewing and passions and just all these things coming together. It's really nice having her around. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Andy Brown, and I used to work with Monica at Arts Cameras. I can remember the first time that I came around to the group and was introduced to everybody at that location, and I met Monica, and the first thing I think anybody would really recognize about Monica or realize is her smile. It was extremely genuine, it was inviting, and it was just a smile like she hasn't seen you in years, even though, it's your first time meeting her. And I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to sit on a few of her classes that she taught at Arts, and right away you could tell that she had a true passion for what she did. And not only that, but she had a passion for really helping people learn, really, and just enjoy photography and enjoy, therefore enjoy life. It seemed that no matter what Monica was doing, she was very, very passionate about it. That's a quality, it's a rare quality.
My name's Holly. I worked with Monica at Arts from I don't know what years to what years. I think it was 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure, time kind of flies. I worked a lot of night times and a lot of weekends, so I would be around Monica all the time because she'd be teaching or get roped in to work in the weekends. She was an amazing person. She was so caring and so loving and extremely patient. I mean, she was the definition of patience. I remember wanting to hang out with her more, work wasn't enough. I wasn't getting enough Monica seeing her at work. So we went out and we would hang out after work in the parking lot for an hour and a half after work, even though we had just worked until 9 p.m. and we were exhausted and mad that we had to stay late and do all this different stuff, and then we'd just stand in the parking lot and keep talking. And I would always get very excited when I saw that orange car in the parking lot because I knew I was going to have a good day at work. She was a very dear friend, and she will be severely missed. But I just want you to know that she was an incredible person. She will not be forgotten.
Hello, I'm Sergio, and I worked with Monica for about 4 years. I guess I don't have one specific story, just a lot of little details of my experience with Monica. Just for some context, when I first met her, I was the human embodiment of a country song, I lost the girl, I lost the house, the car, and most importantly, I lost the cats. So, needless to say, when I started at Arts, all of those things were occurring in my life simultaneously, so I wasn't necessarily in the best mental or emotional space. It was a difficult transition, on top of the fact that all of those other things had happened and that I'd been dealing with. But also, starting a new job where I didn't really know anything, and before that I had been at a job for 10 years. So I felt really, really lost in literally every aspect of my life. But when I started there, everybody was relatively friendly. A little adjustment period of getting to know somebody and getting to know these people. But, like, from the very first day, Monica was incredibly inviting and welcoming and took her time to explain things to me because at the time, like I said, I was not always mentally there, and she never seemed to get flustered or frustrated with me. She just kind of took her time and really helped me along in a lot of ways. I think in those early days she could tell when I wasn't having a really good day, and we had this weird thing where randomly we would flip each other off. I don't know why. We just kind of did it. It was silly and dumb, and like there were all these different inventive ways of flipping each other off. There's the drawbridge or the crank, where you slowly crank your middle finger up, and that. Or, hey, Monica would sometimes go, hey, did you look at the receipt at all? And I'd be like, what receipt are you talking about? I'd turn around, she's just flipping me off. And that, that little interaction would just kind of make your day a little better. Monica was always there. I have made friends with other people as well, and they're also incredible, but those people weren't always there, and through my entire time there, Monica was always the one that was the person I could go to and never feel like I was a fuck up. I don't know how else to say that, but yeah. And we could talk about nephews, and how much she loved her niece and nephew, Emerson and Lydia, and I had a nephew, and we would just kind of compare notes of like what weird stuff these little kids would do and how amazing they were. And I don't really know, man. It's a wild ride, and my life is better because of her. The toughest time in my life was easier to deal with because of her.
My name's Kevin. I've worked with Monica for about 5 years here at Arts Cameras. Had a lot of good times together, whether it was Nerf fights during COVID when the store was closed, or drinking Bloody Marys before work some days. Really gonna miss her. She was so there for people that needed to learn things. Just constantly an inspiration for the people she taught and her staff here. Yeah, she's gonna be greatly missed.
I worked with Monica for about 4 months. She hired me in April of this year, and I didn't even live in Milwaukee. I was moving there and couldn't get a call back from almost any place, but she called me back, interviewed me, and hired me. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to move to a new city, and for that I will forever be grateful.
Today is the very first day I actually came to the store and Monica wasn't. I'm certainly going to miss Monica. We shared a lot of personal secrets, shared a lot of cries, and we had a lot of laughs. And I really miss her. I miss our conversations. I miss our late night hanging out sort of thing when she was here by the store by herself, and I didn't want her to be here by herself. I know many of us took care of each other that way. I know we did, but she was very genuine to me. A lot of people, I feel like she really opened up to people when it came to their hearts. She let them in. We let her in. I let her in, and we shared a lot of personal secrets and cares for our animals, whether our loved ones. I really miss her. She's a wonderful person. I'll never forget her. I'll always remember her. And I really appreciate this time to say my piece and tell her verbally to look at the sky and tell her I love her. And she knows how much I care deeply about her. And thank you.
Well, first off, Monica was the first person to greet me as my first day. So like I was tremendously nervous, and she was just like the nicest most welcome person I've ever met, and so like immediately put me at ease, and didn't make me feel stupid, because I graduated bachelor's in photography, but like still at that point I knew a lot about conceptual photography, did not know a lot about the technical side of it, because of course college doesn't teach you that. So I just remember not like feeling stupid for going her and being like, what is this? Like, tell me how this works, or show me this, or, you know, she just always had the answer, and I didn't have to feel like intimidated, because I just knew like immediately that first day that she was just gonna be like, oh no, like I will help you. So that was probably my like favorite memories, just like my first day of walking in and like her just being so welcoming. They decided to finally kind of push me into teaching, and I said fine. And I was teaching a class, and literally like we flipped the slide, and I was like, I've never seen this slide before. I know nothing about this slide. And I just started trying to like BS my way through it, and I couldn't. And I just literally stopped talking, and I just like looked at the class like these big wide eyes, and I just wanted to melt into this puddle. But Monica was right there, and she just like picked right up and was like, went through the whole thing and didn't make me feel like oh my gosh, like you bombed that or anything like that. She just picked right up and continued doing the class, because she could tell I was just sort of mortified. I was like, I'm never doing this ever again. She especially was very like, you know, like, you're just your first class, like, don't worry about it, you can do this. And she was so encouraging, and yeah, that encouragement meant a lot to me, because coming from somebody who was like that, and I couldn't stand up in front of people and like do any kind of presentation or any kind of talking in public, speaking in public was like my worst fear. She was the person I kind of looked to and like looked up to, and I just consider her so much of like almost like a sister, but then she was also really motherly. Then of course she's a friend, so she's like all of that in one person. So it was just really nice to have somebody in my life who I could consider all of those things and kind of feel like I could go to about really anything.
Hi, I'm Sherry, and I was a former co-worker and friend of Monica's. And I'd just like to say that she was without a doubt one of the sweetest, most patient, and one of the most kind people I think I've ever known. And the world will miss her greatly, because she had so many more beautiful things to do. Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Meg Burkett, and I had the honor and pleasure of working with Monica at Arts Cameras. When I started here, I was a salesperson, and I went to school for art education, so I was already excited to meet Monica before I had even met her. And the day that I met her I could tell right away that we would get along and be friends, and that we would have fun working together, and I grew to be pretty good friends with her. And one of my absolute favorite stories was one of our focus group events. We went to Prairie du Sac in Wisconsin. It was about a 2 or 2.5 hour drive or so to photograph eagles on January 13th, 2018. Why do I remember that date so vividly? Well, it was the day that she figured out I was pregnant before I did. We were stuck out in -4 degree weather this day, and I was picking onions off of my sandwich that we got from Subway, and she called me out for it. She was like, "What's going on over there, Meg?" And I was like, "I don't know, onions have sucked lately, and I just don't enjoy them anymore." She's like, "That's really weird. Why do you think it is?" So we spent the entire ride home after being out in -4 degree weather and her car had also lost heat on the drive there. So it was just funny situation after funny situation the entire day. It was kind of hilarious looking back at it. It was not entirely hilarious that day. So as we drove home in her car without heat, we Googled what it means to not enjoy onions anymore after normally liking them, and came up with the only conclusion that I was growing a small human. And she must have known already, because the next day that I came into work, I told her that, you know, we found the right result for that, and she was like, yeah, I know. So it's a story that plays back in my head over and over again because of how much my daughter absolutely loves her. We dubbed Monica the 10-minute babysitter once I started doing transfers and bringing Rosa with me, because I would have to pick her up from daycare, drop her off every morning that I would stop by here, or every evening that I would stop by. We would come in, and once Rosa was old enough, there was always a candy bowl out here that, of course, was replenished on a weekly or daily basis by Monica. And my daughter became obsessed with M&Ms, as she calls them, Nem-Nems. And Monica would always have one at the ready for her. And it was just a sweet little gesture that doesn't need to be done, but it became this ongoing joke and this ongoing just familiarity for her and us. And actually, she's right here. Come here, Rosa. We're telling a story about Monica. Can you say your name?
I'm Rosalie.
And what was your favorite thing about Monica?
Giving me M&Ms.
Yeah, giving you M&Ms. Did she give good hugs too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's sweet.
She's sweet. Do you have anything else you want to say about Monica? What?
I love your flower, Monica.
You loved her flowers? Yeah.
And thanks for giving me chocolate.
And she gave you a lot more too. She was very nice to you, wasn't she? Well, I guess that's about all I have to say. We miss Monica so much. And, you know, although we miss her, we are so lucky to have had her in our lives and learned so much from her and shared so many fun experiences and fun memories with her. And I wouldn't give that up for the world. So that's what I got. Bye.
So one of the wonderful things about Monica that I'll always remember is her wonderful way she could deal with any customer, even the hardest customers. We would jokingly refer to her as the customer whisperer all the time. One time I had this customer come in hot. We would always say that somebody very angry, ready for a fight. The customer came in hot, and this gentleman came in and was very angry about something that had happened. And I'm working with the customer, and as Monica would have told you, I didn't have the best poker face, and so I would sometimes tend to show on my face what I was thinking. And this particular customer looked me in the eye and said, "You want to punch me in the face right now, don't you?" And of course I was like, "Oh, no, of course not." And it was at that moment that I stepped away and I came over to Monica and I said, "Hey, Monica, do you want to give me some help with a customer?" And she, of course, without hesitation, immediately stepped in, and in about a minute had that customer calm and happy. And by the time he left, he was thanking her, and everything was wonderful. And that was just Monica's way, that she could work with anybody, and everybody was her best friend by the end. The thing that I'll always remember about Monica is how much she liked to laugh, and that was kind of something special that we shared. Is I felt like I could always get her to laugh no matter what was going on, and so After that moment, all I'd have to do is look at Monica and say, "You want to punch me in the face right now, don't you?" And I'd have her rolling on the floor. So, and I hope she knows that, you know, she wants to punch me in the face right now. So, take care.
What I do have is a fond memory of the way that Monica inspired me. Monica inspired me. She was someone who inspired me when it came to teaching. I watched her teach a number of classes to mostly elderly people and people who were of an era that didn't really understand digital cameras. And what I learned from watching her teach was how to have patience and the joy of teaching in a way that allows someone to discover for themselves what they're learning, and the patience to allow them that discovery, and being able to see the joy when they finally understand when it clicks and just makes sense, and you get to watch that moment with them, and giving someone the space they need in order to allow them to have that moment for themselves, instead of just really kind of doing it for them, which is a lot of times what our first, kind of instinct is. But Monica didn't ever have that instinct. She never had the instinct of doing it for someone. She allowed them to come do it themselves and guided them. And that is something that I use now so much, because I teach mostly, older adults, and she really inspired me to enjoy and find that joy in teaching. Monica was just so positive. I don't remember anything ever getting her down. She was someone who I looked up to and really will continue to look up to and be inspired by. She will be missed. I'm so grateful to have known her. And especially in that period of my life, right before I went to grad school, she inspired me to make the plunge. Whether she knew it or not, she did. So, thank you, Monica. Thank you.